Hey, here's another trailer update. Haven't made a video in a while. Figured I'd just show what I've done so far. And I realized I never showed the roof either. So these bars are spaced exactly the width of the solar panels. So this whole area in between these ladder racks will be covered with solar. It'll be blocking this emergency exit. I think I'll just like have a hammer there or something, so that way if I've got to get through, I can get through. I use the self-leveling lap sealant and covered up the screw holes too on the fan and this thing. Yeah, there's not much to see up here. I'm gonna use cameras on either side as mirrors for the trailer. Got a motion sensor light, regular light, some hooks for whatever this thing so I don't get locked inside. Got another motion sensor light by the hitch. Hopefully that helps if I'm doing stuff at night here. Finally got the floor in, as you can see. And I did something kind of weird underneath. So, as you can see, it's not just straight strips of subfloor. So I wanted a subfloor like this because of thermal bridging. I didn't want the metal studs to be either heating up or cooling the inside. So I wanted insulation on top of that, but in order to do that, I needed some strips to hold up the floor. And I figured this would be maybe like stronger, but also more flexible if I had them offset like this. So that way when I hit a bump, it can kind of bend with the road. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, because it's going the whole length where it like alternates underneath, and then it gets, I made sure to like leave a hole up here for where my shower drain's gonna come through, because I'm thinking of having the gray tank right between the axles, or right in front, like in here. You can see where I was gonna have it, where I had the mounts, but I'm not gonna have it up here. I think for weight distribution's sake, I'd rather have a lower gray tank that's closer to the axles than have a higher one that's further away from them. And then this is just the 1-inch XPS. I'm thinking about filling these gaps a little bit with foam, just kind of up here. You can already see that there's, here, take my finger out of there. Yeah, you can see this foam right here. And I got the pest block stuff. So I guess if, apparently mice won't want to chew through that or something. I don't know. Not sure how the pest block stuff works, but it was about the same price as the regular, so I figured I might as well. So yeah, we've gotten a good bit done. I used the Loctite PL whatever Max. Whenever I do metal to wood adhesion, I use the Loctite PL Max whatever. And then I also use these self-tapping screws to hold this 2x to this stud, because right here I'm gonna have the wall. And this is like the bottom plate and then the top plate for the wall. And these are only 1 inch wide, but it's actually gonna be 1.5 inches, so this is more accurate down here, where I'll have studs 12 inches on center. The reason why there's a hole right here is because I have a mini split, and the exterior unit of the mini split will go right here. I'll cut a little hole in the ramp right here so it can vent straight. So I'm hoping it can suck air in the bottom and push it out the back. And I'll also have a little fan right here sucking air. So the propane tank will be right here in its own enclosure of its own. So this is going to be boxed off right here. So there's going to be a hole right here sucking air into the propane enclosure, and then sucking it out into the AC enclosure. So that way I know that, you know, if there is a leak, there's always a 12-volt fan that's constantly sucking all the propane out. Yeah, and just, you know, you can see the foam along the edges. And then I screwed in the 3/4 ply directly to the metal studs below and not into the wooden subfloor. So the wooden subfloor, nothing's getting drilled into that. That's its own thing. This floor is like each of these screws right here and like right here. I think I'm gonna fill in these holes with some self-leveling sealant before I lay the floor down. Same thing with the cracks, because it's just gonna be one vinyl sheet. Because I know boards will like expand and contract and shift around, and I don't want any of that. But yeah, like this screw goes directly, it doesn't go, it goes through the subfloor, like through some purple insulation into a metal stud, not the subfloor. The subfloor is kind of floating, but not really. Like it's got all the pressure of the floor on top of it, and the studs underneath to support it, so I think it'll be fine. Right here's where the water heater is going to slide in. I figured I just put some crappy little lip, 3/4 ply lip around it, because I'm going to have an inch of insulation on top of here, and I didn't want the insulation directly touching the heater. I figured that would be a bad thing. This stuff also says it's pretty flammable, so yeah, I definitely wanted to be careful with that. Yeah, and it doesn't have to look pretty because I'm never going to see this thing. So I just figured I'd do that while I'm in the stage of having holes cut and whatnot. So around the windows, I'm doing a half inch of insulation on top of 1 inch. Again, this is covering the studs to prevent the thermal bridging. That's why I have 2 inches on the ceiling too, because I really wanted to stop thermal bridging. And another thing, yet another thing to stop thermal bridging, is these shims that I slid in between the studs and the roof, so that way there's a gap. There's going to be like an air gap for most of the roof. So most of the roof is not touching the insulation really. And you can see the screw right there. This is going to be holding up the bench back that will flip up, so it needs to be pretty secure. So I, you know, pre-drilled like hell. It's still splintered just because I pre-drilled from the other side, and I'm not going to see this, so it can be sloppy. Because I'm going to have the wall on top of here. This is 1 inch thick with another inch of insulation. So I've got the screw going in there, and I figured these 3 screws are going through the wood and then into the metal stud. I use sheet metal screws for those, not the not self-drilling, but self-tapping. Whereas like these right here, or these right here that are a little beefier, these are all self-drilling. Yeah, that setup over there is mirrored over here. I've got, again, I'll have hinges here to hold up the bench back so it can flip up, and leave space for this, which is I'm gonna cut notches into this, and then have the supports for the bench seat and the bed coming up off of here. Again, I needed these 1 inch shims to accommodate the insulation, so that way, because I mean, just touching this is freezing cold, and then this is like, it instantly holds all the heat in my hand. Like, it feels hot. So hopefully that'll help with thermal bridging, putting another inch of insulation on top of all the studs. These are just something to screw the cabinets, because I'm gonna have a floor to ceiling cabinet here and a floor to ceiling cabinet here. And this is just something to screw that into, so that way it's secured against the wall, not just the floor. Oh, I had to fix up some of the wires, make them a little different, just so that way they can fit inside the cabinetry, because none of my wires are going to be inside the walls. It's all going to be inside the cabinets and super accessible. Like the only wires really that are going to be in the walls are like these for the brief period where it has to go through this, and then this needs to run along here so that it exits inside my floor to ceiling cabinet with the, and this will have insulation on top of it. I just don't want it to come out right here. I got these strips right here too by the sink window, because I wanted 2 inches of insulation right here, but only 1.5 right here, because the window it like clamps down. That's how it stays in. So I needed 1.5 inch thickness exactly right here. This little notch was a mistake. I mean, I thought I was gonna extend the 1.5 inch out to here, but I changed my mind. And made only this skinny little strip 1.5 inches. So that's why this is skinny, but it's not gonna hurt anything because this isn't really holding anything up. This is just for the upper cabinets to screw into. Up here is what really matters, where you can see I've got a French cleat sort of thing going here with the shims. Sheet metal screws, self-tapping, not self-drilling. Beefy, 2 of them per stud. Again, you can see where I messed up, where I thought I would have 1/2 inch right here following like this dotted line, and then I decided to just do a full inch, and then this is 1 inch wide. And yeah, I've got that for the uppers over there and there, where I've got the same sort of French cleat system. You can see that angle right there. And then this to mount it to, and then this will hold up my cabinets, or my lower cabinets and my counters. Again, before I put in that next layer of insulation, I'll probably notch these out. But you can see I already put in the next layer of insulation for all the 1/2 inch stuff, where it's like that's 1 inch and the insulation is 1/2 inch. Up here, this is just some scraps that I put right here. It doesn't have to look pretty or be super strong, because I'm just gonna have the shower head mount right here. I used really thin plywood right here, so I just used a block right here, so that way the screws can have something to bite into. Because yeah, the shower head holder is just gonna go right here, and the shower's gonna be right here. And then this is just, these are like shims, just like these shims, because I'm gonna have like a tube kind of going right here where wires and pipes can all flow through. Like wires, pipes, gas lines, whatever, will all go through this little tube at the front. It'll make sense later. And then here, yeah, right here you can kind of see what's going on with the insulation, where I've got these, again, sheet metal screws going directly into the metal studs. So this goes through the insulation into the metal studs. So that's not going anywhere. Like I could probably hang my body weight directly on that screw, not on this wood, because this is just cheap crap. Oh, and the strips weren't long enough. I bought these and didn't really know what to do with them, and this is basically the only thing I could do with them. I kind of wish I used plywood strips ripped. Like if you're doing this yourself, because this is, I'm gonna have wires in this little gap right here, and then the ceiling will be like panels mounted on here. And I wish I used like 1/2 inch plywood ripped into strips for this, and then I just did shit like this. It's really messy, but it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to hold the ceiling up, and that's so much glue in there. And right there, it's gonna work. And I had to put edge strips that weren't aligned with the main 5 on the roof. Right here, so that way, you know, it won't sag. And, you know, right here, so it won't sag. There's obviously things that I'm still messing up, like I drilled this hole here without thinking about how this might be in front of the tube, but I want this to be inside the tube. So I'm probably gonna have to run this back up and then behind. There's still little stuff like that that I'm making mistakes, need to fix. Like these screws that are just not really biting into anything. But I don't really know if I need them. Because they're just holding up this vent. And those vents, I use the same construction adhesive that you see like in places like here to hold the vents there. But yeah, that's how things are going right now. I guess I'll make another video when I've got the second layer of insulation in, and probably the windows and the bits of wall paneling that will go here. I'm thinking of using like something super skinny and then gluing it with screws in the corners, just to save weight, because this came with 3/8 inch ply walls, and I want to use thinner walls than that because they don't really have to be structural.